EA Sports have added in Roman Kopylov. At one point in time, a hyped up prospect. He did start off with 2 losses, but had some highlight reel head kick KOs and some nice finishes. Was on a 4-fight win streak until he ran into Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, and seeing what he did to Roman Dolidze, definitely not a horrible loss to have on the record. Then beating Cesar Almeida, a teammate of Alex Pereira, and then that head kick, I believe it was a head kick KO on Chris Curtis, put him right back on the map. And unfortunately suffered a loss against Paulo Costa. But he is fighting on the UFC 322 card next weekend against Gregory Robocop Rodriguez. So judging on how he just knocked out Jack Hermanson in very brutal fashion, that is definitely going to be a rough matchup because of the grappling, the power, and the relentlessness of Gregory Rodriguez. That's definitely going to be an intriguing matchup, but judging on the stats, we already know for the most part we're going to have to use that kick power as much as we can. So most of our damage is basically going to be coming off leg kicks, body kicks, and head kicks. And the easiest way to really do that and take advantage of a kickboxer like Roman Kopylov is start with some low kicks. I would say more calf kicks than really hard low kicks, because in UFC 5 the full power low kicks are a bit slower in this game, so they're easy to read and see coming. But the calf kicks, you have to react even faster. So you could mix in some of those hard low kicks later in the fight when you feel like you got that timing down, but you'll do plenty of damage with these calf kicks. Also, the leg is one of the parts of the body that doesn't regenerate a lot of health between rounds. In fact, it, I think, recovers the least amount. So if you do invest and get a couple good ones in early, that will definitely be a great investment. You will kill your opponent's power. Also, their ability to grapple, because their takedowns, their grapple GA, they'll get a lot less grapple GA for their takedowns the more the leg is chopped up. And they lose some footwork, so it lets you, work your footsies, going in and out the pocket, baiting out counters. And it's just a little bit harder to do that, because even though I'm saying to do that, when you're facing guys as big as Izzy, Anderson Silva, Pereira, you're a little bit smaller compared to those guys. So you'll see I have a hard time at range. So you kind of got to use them like a Whitaker in a way, like where you kind of like you pop in, land something real quick, back out, kick, and kind of like rinse and repeat, because you can't really hit them with punches from the same range, obviously, like an Izzy or a Pereira can. So you kind of got to be blitzing in and out. And, when you're backing out, set up some different type of kicks. I try to head kick counter him right there, but we're definitely going to be getting some beautiful head kicks, so definitely stay tuned. And mainly, it's going to be a beautiful weapon. I tell you guys to definitely practice in, the practice mode where you put on AI strike recording, and that is to definitely put on that head kick counter to drill that into your mind. Watch this. He misses that spinning kick, and we fire off a nasty counter head kick. So not only is it a head kick, but also has counter damage, and they can't block it. So, it will lead to, you punishing people who are just throwing a lot of spinning kicks, missing teeps, pretty much anything of that nature. I've even cracked people with that counter if they like jump up with a flying knee out of range, or even missing a calf kick, something as simple as that. You could turn that into devastating damage. That's one of my favorite counters. Along with the block counter, of course, whenever I can. Sometimes looking for too much will end up getting you hurt. So it's good to add that in, but not to excessively look for it. I was looking for that head kick counter right there, but he didn't throw the spinning kick to the body. And Izzy's are going to be the hardest people or the players to face because, the reach difference and just the stats overall, health stats, his kick move levels, his kick power, just everything all together makes it a lot harder to fight. If I was fighting like Whitakers and Costas, and which you don't really see, or Jerry Cannoniers, like somewhere like they're around his size, it will feel a little bit better. But man, most people really go Izzy, Pereira, and Silva for the most part. See, when a lot of people with the lead body kick right there, the lead body roundhouse, a lot of people go for the spinning body kick right after. So sometimes just wait for it and just walk out the way. When you walk out the way, when you walk away from, I believe, their jab hand, so I would have to circle to my right side in that situation, and you would just make them whiff with like footwork. You don't have to sidestep or major lunge. Same thing with that spinning back kick that the other Izzy threw, that he got KO'd for it. Look at that beautiful pull hook. Then we double out to the body, rock him to the body right there. Try to crack him to the body with a nice body kick, a 1-2 lead uppercut. We're doing that because I saw him ducking a few times, so, you know, I just decided to throw the uppercut instead of the hook, and it paid off. Got me a nice rock. Still gotta be careful. Izzy's still gonna be very dangerous, but chopping up the legs is gonna make this fight so much easier. He's definitely a fun off-man to pick, though, especially if you guys like to kick. He has great leg kicks, great body kicks, and head kicks, of course. Hey, see, we get rocked right there. Still very dangerous. Watch this. Look, we move away from that jab hand. Boom, head kick counter. Beautiful. Now we get a Sean Strickland. So, you know, he still is kind of long for the division compared to us. He definitely has, I believe, a reach advantage. But look at that. Another head kick counter right off the bat for missing a teep. It's a 5-star move, so it's going to do crazy damage on top of us having 96 kick power. That is just going to be a devastating counter. It was enough to pretty much drop him immediately as soon as the fight started. Look at that, beautiful. We flowing right there. Still got to be careful, though. For the most part, you know, some players will go crazy in situations like that, but I saw I wasn't going to get the finish, so I kind of returned back to my normal pace. Because at the end of the day, in my head, I'm like, okay, we just knocked him down, right? So we're winning the round. He would essentially have to, you know, catch up with, you know, not only just the strikes, but he would also have to get at least a knockdown back to even try to win round 1. And this is a 5-rounder. I'm not using somebody who is a meta pick or a prime multi-ego, so I'm not trying to, you know, throw 200 strikes in like a round or two. Not very smart, so just return to my regular pace, and I'll take whatever I can land. And also, I'm being a little bit more passive in the first round. Look at that. We end up landing real good right there. Nice rock. Main reason for that is I'm trying to read my opponent. If you go out and feel like you have an established rhythm against your opponent, you know, like if you're fighting, let's say the last Izzy, if I start trying to fight that same type of pace and style, it might not work against this guy. This guy might be better at countering and just trading, and I'll put myself in a bad spot. So I would rather take the time in round 1 to just read my opponent out before I start committing to bigger counters, combos, and flowing. Like in the beginning, I just happened to flow. You know, it just happened, but I'm not trying to force it. You know, because then if I start spamming a whole bunch of head movement and counters, you know, those teeps and some of the body kicks he's throwing is going to do way more damage. And that's going to be unnecessary vulnerability damage will be taken. So, look at that. He busted up our nose. I believe he sidestepped right there. So, I still got to be very, very careful. Doesn't matter how much we're winning. Like a crazy counter and them jumping on you could be the end of the fight sometimes. And that's just how UFC 5 is. Look at that. We drop him again. Drop him again. And he had enough. On to the final fight. We're facing a Nazardine Imavov. And his specialty is going to be his power, his boxing. So his move levels, his boxing combos, and he has really good kicks. We probably have more kicking power than Imavov, so we'll definitely try to use that as much as we can. And we're going to chop down the leg to mitigate that power as much as we possibly can. But without forcing it. We got to do it at proper ranges, because if he's leaping in like this all the time, we're going to have to, you know, time those low kicks a bit better so we don't get intercepted with, you know, any counter damage or kicks that he's flying in with. He also has that reach. So, you know, he could definitely fly in with a really quick 1-2 and catch us while we're throwing a kick. And if that happens too often, oh, look at that. We check a kick right here. I wanted to show you guys that you could just counter with a rear elbow. It's a free counter. You have like a small recovery window. So if you check those kicks, for the most part, usually I could land an elbow like 90% of the time. It's definitely a really good counter. You could cut your opponent. And of course, you know, checking a kick and getting off like a nice elbow on them is better than just getting nothing, you know. I mean, you do get some damage from the check. You know, you damage their legs a little bit, but also damaging their head health and possibly cutting them. You know, in that case, my rear will basically make my right hook do more damage. Actually, no. I'm bugging. My left hook, actually. I'm southpaw, yeah. But basically, I mean just my rear hand, because the cut is on his right side. So that rear hook, The more it lands, the more damage I'll do. Now look at that. We broke his nose as well. So our 1-2s, the front kicks down the pipe, uppercuts, are going to do more damage and worsen up the nose for the most part. And now short-term stamina recovery is going to be slower, so less combos for him. Look at that. Now it's red, so now I'm going to be doing even more damage. Not sure exactly a percentage, but he keeps eating 1-2s and uppercuts. He's just going to get knocked out. And now we're tearing apart his body as much as we can when we rock him. Because getting that power out the way off the rip definitely helped us out a lot. And it takes away the footwork a little bit, so it lets us, have some breathing room from time to time to reset and establish that kickboxing range once again. But I definitely like Roman, though. I'll definitely use him from time to time. But like I said, the size difference and everything could be very annoying. I mean, it even gets annoying when I'm using Prime Whitaker against Izzy, so, I mean, definitely a great addition. But look at that, another head kick counter right there. I just love that counter, though. If they miss something ever so slightly as far as in kicks, look at that counter with a nice rear elbow. You already know me. I love getting my flash kills, so I was trying to throw a head kick there, but it came out as a low kick, unfortunately. That shit landed, man. Sleepy time. But he's pressuring us. Look at that. Beautiful counter right there. Yeah, in respect to our opponent, though, he's not reverting to any cheese or nothing like that. He's just still trying to implement his game plan. He's trying to pressure us because his leg is chopped up. He probably doesn't want to fight out of southpaw. And pretty much if he just sits back, he's going to get picked apart. So he really has no choice but to pressure and try to make something happen. Or else he's just going to make the fight a lot longer. And it's just going to be worse. He's just going to get dropped and picked apart from the outside. So, you might as well try something at this point in the fight. I mean, look at that. His legs, his body's getting cooked. His legs are chopped up. Look at that. We drop him another low kick right there. You see how the calf kicks add up relatively fast, especially if you have a high move level on them. Starting to crack that body. Rock him with a beautiful T. Look at that. Drop him with a nice body hook. I mean, it's getting really, really bad for him right now. Another body kick. I thought he was on block it, but he didn't, so we're able to get that. He just probably doesn't want to take any head damage. He has like no head health right now. Try a head kick counter, but we're just a little too short on the reach. So let's see. We're going to time him right here. Boom. Beautiful cross down the pipe. And that's going to be that. Hope you guys enjoyed the showcase on Roman Kopylov, and definitely more UFC content and some Undisputed content on the way, so stay tuned.